Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. For today's video I wanted to talk about my experience so far with the contraceptive implant. So in this video I'm going to talk about how it was inserted, how I felt whilst it was being inserted. I'm going to maybe answer a few questions that you guys might have. For example, did you feel anything? Did it hurt? And was it really the right decision for me to get the implant done? Do I regret getting it done? All of that sort of stuff. So that is what today's video is going to be like. Before I get into this video, if it is not already perfectly clear, I of course am not a nurse. I'm not anyone who is trained in inserting implants. So of course, don't just take my word for it. If you are considering having the implant inserted, or in fact you are just debating having any form of contraception done, always go to your doctor and they will tell you all that you need to know. I would like to think you guys would trust a doctor more than you would trust me. I've actually been really debating getting the contraceptive implant for about 1.5 to 2 years at this point, and finally, I think it was last week actually, I went to my doctor's because I had an appointment to talk about other health issues that I had. But while I was there, I brought up the contraceptive implant and how I was really interested in actually getting it done. How everyone reacts to contraceptives is different. What might work for one person may not work for another. For those of you who are interested, previously to getting the implant fitted, I was on the contraceptive pill for a long time. I didn't have any issues with it, and now a lot of you guys are gonna say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But honestly, you guys, what was putting me off continuing with the pill was just the amount of side effects that comes with taking the pill. And I know that every kind of thing that you take, anything that you do comes with some sort of risk. But the side effects of the implant are much less bothersome to me, shall I say, than the risks and the side effects of the pill. Basically, I went over to my local doctors, I go there all the time, and she actually gave me this leaflet, which is this right here. She did make sure that the implant was definitely what I wanted, and I wasn't wanting to kind of think about any other form of contraception. She brought up the coil, and the coil just is not for me. The thought of it makes me cringe. And so I just thought that the implant was the best thing for me personally. And she gave me the number to go and book an appointment to get it done. And a few days after the appointment, I made sure it was definitely what I wanted to do. And then I finally rang the clinic, which is my local clinic, and got an appointment. For some reason, you guys, I was incredibly nervous to get the implant fitted. I was working myself up about it all week, and then on the day that I was due to get it done, my appointment was actually quite late. It was at 10 to 7 at night, and seriously, like all day, as the day went on, I was just getting more and more nervous and more wound up about the thought of getting it done. And one of the biggest things that was putting me off getting the implant up until that point was the insertion process and the removal process, but in particular the removal process. Before I actually went to my appointment, I watched a video on YouTube about and it basically showed the implant getting fitted and it also getting removed. I'm not obviously going to show anything like that here on this video, but I will link it in the description box. Again, maybe you're like me and you want to know what you're getting yourself into before going ahead with it. One of the biggest things as well that was almost a deal breaker for me with getting the implant fitted was actually the whole thing with your periods. And if you're not 100% sure what I'm talking about, basically 3 things can happen after you get the implant fitted. The first one is no change. The second one is your periods may become irregular. You might perhaps get some spotting. You might not have a period for 3 months, and then all of a sudden one day you will bleed. And that was like, oh my gosh, knowing my luck, that's probably what's going to happen to me. And then another lot of people, their periods just stop completely. And yeah, that whole period thing, it does put a lot of people off getting the implant, but I thought at the end of the day it was worth the risk. Obviously, with the contraceptive pill that I was on, I was always having regular periods. I knew what day that I would start bleeding and then the day that I would finish, and it was all very organized. But the implant does not have what the pill has in terms of keeping your periods regular. There is like a special, really confusingly long medical name for what the pill has that the implant doesn't, that keeps the periods regular. So that is a big deal breaker for a lot of people. It's whether or not you think it's worth the risk. That it works for 3 years. You can have it taken out before the 3 years is up if it doesn't agree with you for whatever reason, or you just want to start a family, you want children. What I absolutely love about the implant is that the second it gets taken out, within a few days or so, your fertility should return to normal. This is currently, a few days after getting it done, what it looks like. It's got the little strip on it, and there's a little bit of blood. Gross. Tonight I am finally able to take this little strip off. There was also a bandage on it. Could you really call it a bandage? It was more like a massive plaster. Actually, immediately after I had the implant fitted, the nurse who did it actually said, "You are going to bruise because I can already see where exactly it has been inserted." I do bruise quite easily. So yeah, she said, "You are definitely going to get a bruise." And I literally started bruising that night. So that was the massive plaster that was kind of over it, and I had the strip underneath that, and that was actually literally when I just had it done. It had been in about an hour at that point. And then this is a quick picture of it the next morning. So as you guys can see right there, the bruise is already starting to come through. And then the next day I took the big bandage off, and that is the massive bruise that was left from there. And then just that one, which is pretty much what it looks like at the moment. But the appointment in general was, I wouldn't say it was a long appointment, but it was longer than what I thought it was going to be. I was in the room with the nurse for a good 25 minutes, and what I had to do was I had to sign things just to make sure that the implant was definitely what I wanted to do and I was definitely good to go ahead with it. And she also was asking me all kinds of questions. When did I last have sex? Is there any chance I could be pregnant? And then she was talking about the procedure itself and what she is going to do to get it fitted. But because I was so nervous, I was a little bit all over the place. But honestly, you guys, I didn't feel any pain. I really didn't. And I know it looks painful and it looks bruised and battered at the moment, but honestly, I did not feel a thing. And basically what the nurse did was she had me lay down on a bed, and she at first numbed the area that the implant was going in. So the second that I was numb, she made sure that I couldn't feel anything, and then that's when she went in to actually fit the implant itself. And literally it takes like a second to get this thing inside, and it's so weird. And the whole procedure, it feels a little bit odd. What she has to do when she was giving me the local anaesthetic was she put the needle in my arm, and I couldn't feel much, but what I could feel was her wiggling the needle deep into my arm, hence why the bruise comes right out to here, because the implant went in there and it sits around this. That's the end of the implant right there. So that's why the bruise comes out quite a bit, because she had to at first dig the needle in, administer the local anaesthetic, and she had to really kind of get it quite far up into my arm, just to make sure that the area, all of it was numb. It kind of looks like a stapler. That's all I can think that it looks like. This device, she puts the implant on it, and she kind of sets this up, and literally she plopped it in. There's a little like needle thing on the end of it, and it kind of sits ever so slightly in your arm, and she literally like goes ka-ching ching. This is a really rubbish explanation of how it is, but yeah, she literally like slides across, and that's what inserts the implant, and it literally takes half a second. It's in there. She feels it to make sure that it's in properly, and then she will ask, well, your nurse will ask you to feel it, and that's just so that you know how to make sure it's there, make sure it's in the right place, all of that sort of stuff, so you can detect if there's ever an issue with your implant over the next however long it's going to be in. Basically, she'll just wrap you up. She'll make sure that you're feeling okay. She will explain the aftercare. The nurse explained the aftercare to me, and she gave me this leaflet thing here, and it's just a list of do's and don'ts. So basically, sometimes after you get the implant fitted, about 3 weeks after, you may be required to have a pregnancy test just to double check that you are not pregnant. Whereas for me, like she said there, no, it is not needed for me to go back in 3 weeks' time to have a pregnancy test done, because there was no chance at all that I could be pregnant. But I'm just letting you guys know that's sometimes what you might have to do if there's any uncertainty there that you could be pregnant. It just says you need to make sure that you're actually properly looking after the area where it was inserted. You need to keep an eye on the wound. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but if it's oozing liquid, or it's incredibly itchy, or it's really, really painful, it could be infected. Just make sure that if you have any issues, you go straight back to where you got it fitted. And there's also a little website here that you can basically subscribe to, and they will tell you when your implant is going to expire and you need to get it either removed and a new one put in, or removed and you can move on to whatever else you want to do. And at the end of the appointment, she actually gave me a little bag of condoms, which I actually was not expecting, but there are 6 condoms in here, and she was just like, here, have these. How quickly you are protected against pregnancy with the implant is when in your menstrual cycle you actually get it fitted. So really, if within the first few days of your menstrual cycle, if you then get the implant fitted in those first few days of your bleeding, then you are going to be immediately protected against pregnancy. However, like myself, if you kind of get it done any other time in your cycle, you have to wait a week until you can have sex. Obviously, you can have sex and use condoms, but if you're not going to use condoms, you need to wait a week. It's pretty much been okay so far, and I don't regret getting it done. It is just a little bit uncomfortable at the moment still. Obviously, there is a massive bruise there, but that'll obviously go away in time. And I don't regret getting it done. It didn't hurt. The lead up to getting it done was worse than getting it done. So if you are someone like me who keeps putting off getting the implant fitted purely because you think it's going to hurt, or you don't like the look or the sound of the implant getting fitted or removed, really, honestly to God, in my opinion, it just was not as bad as even what the video I watched physically getting it fitted and removed. It's just not as bad as what I thought it was going to be, and I'm really happy about that. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, click on that subscribe button. Have you ever had any interesting experiences with the implant? Maybe you've had a particularly bad experience with the implant, or has the implant just been fabulous for you? Obviously, we do all deal with things differently. Really just look at all of your options. There are so many options for contraception out there nowadays, and you need to make use and just double check that if you're going to get something done, that it is the best option for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and of course I hope to see you guys in my next video.